So what's happening with Artur now, it's actually happening to all of us. And here we're being told that, oh yes, like all these restrictions have been removed, which is a total lie, because we're not allowed to travel. I can't even go and visit home anymore. I'm not allowed to get on the plane. I became a prisoner in this country without any rights.
I believe in what he's standing for, and that's for all our freedoms all across Canada, and we're here to show support for him, to let him know that he's loved and he's cared about, and that we will pray for him, continue to pray for him.
What do you think he's doing in there?
Preaching the gospel.
Today.
Well, we really believe that Pastor Artur Pawlowski, we understand that when one of the bodies suffers, we all suffer.
Sheila Gunn Reid for Rebel News. It's Sunday afternoon, quickly approaching evening, and I'm here at the Edmonton Remand Center because this is where Pastor Artur Pawlowski is being held behind bars. As I'm filming this, the pastor is approaching 50 days behind bars after he was arrested on multiple charges, including mischief and a little-known, never-before-used law, the Critical Infrastructure Defense Act, which is designed to deal with pipeline bombers and wellhead saboteurs. But that is not at all what Pastor Art did or is even accused of. He went to give a sermon to the truckers who were blockading the Coutts border crossing with Montana. He went for one afternoon. The blockade was going on for days before he got there and continued days after he left. And he left the same day he arrived. And yet the province of Alberta considers him the criminal mastermind behind the whole affair. When the truckers and farmers blocked the Coutts border crossing, the main crossing with Montana, to protest the restrictions going on here in Alberta, but also across the country. Art's legal troubles with the province, though, they started long before this latest arrest. He ended up on the wrong side of the law when he fed the homeless, as he always does, in downtown Calgary, Alberta, a crime the province of Alberta labeled an illegal public gathering during the time of COVID. In fact, Art's been arrested 5 times in high-profile style takedowns after preventing health authorities and police from interrupting his church services. He's also been the subject of restraints to his right to peacefully protest the lockdown restrictions here. And he was given a compelled speech order wherein he had to renounce his own opinions on COVID and lockdowns before publicly speaking on the issue. There's so much more to the story. You can find out all about the trials and tribulations of Pastor Artur Pawlowski as he fights for free speech and religious freedom against COVID restrictions. And you can support his legal battle at saveartur.com. Now, Art's latest problems with the law fall within the jurisdiction of the Lethbridge Courthouse. He was arrested at his home in Calgary and held for roughly 6 weeks there before bizarrely being transferred 3 hours north to the Edmonton Remand Center behind me. This building is the largest prison in the country. It was built in 2013. It houses roughly 2,000 inmates, and it's got state-of-the-art security. It's where they send the worst of the worst as they await trial. Today, however, it houses a pastor. In fact, Art is the second pastor housed here. Last year, Pastor James Coutts from Grace Life Church spent 35 days in jail here for refusing to force his church to comply with COVID restrictions he said would violate the practice of his faith. People are gathered here tonight, including Art's fellow Christian pastors. They worshiped this morning and this afternoon in their own churches, and now they are here to show their support for Artur. What I can tell you is I know that when Pastor James Coutts was held here, we were told the facility ends up in lockdown when protests occur on the property. So that could be a real consequence of what happens here today. There are roughly 100 people on the other side of the wall here behind me. Let's go check it out. Ladies, why did you come today?
Because I find it really scary that there are Canadian pastors who've been jailed and some are still in jail. We have political prisoners in Canada, and I think if it's the least I can do to come out here and just be a number to show my support, then I think that's important for us to do.
We just want to stand up for our brother that's in jail right now, because the body of Christ is really binding together to pray for him. So we're just thankful to be a part of it.
Well, I just think if we don't stand up for our freedoms now, we'll never have them. And it's getting closer and closer to that day. And people need to start speaking out and standing up and saying enough is enough. We're not putting up with this anymore. We want to follow God. We want to be free in his dominion in this land, and not under some, I don't know, where you can't even speak truth.
Because this is so wrong what's happening in Canada everywhere, and we can't put up with this. We have to stand up for our country, for us, for our children, for our grandchildren, and just everybody.
What do you think Art is doing in there right now?
I think he's just beaming, knowing that we're out here. I hope he can hear us.
Thanks, that's great.
They're friends. Thank
So
you to all
what's
of those
happening,
who have it on your heart to give.
with
that.
Artur now,
I'm
it's
so
actually
represented
happening
board
to
right
all
now
of
for a
us.
few
And
reasons.
here
One is I
we're
haven't
being
found a
told
great
that,
lawyer.
oh yes,
I
like
have
all
actually
these
interacted
restrictions
with a
have been
few.
removed, which is a
But
total
as
lie,
you're aware,
because
I
we're
follow
not
the
allowed
call
to
of my
travel.
heart.
I can't even go and visit
And
home
for
anymore.
me to engage
I'm not
services
allowed
with a
to
lawyer,
get on the
it would-
plane.
I would have to be
I
able to afford it,
became a
and it would
prisoner
have
in
to be
this
the right
country
person. So I've met
without
with
any
people.
rights.
I believe in what he's standing for, and that's for all our freedoms all across Canada. And we're here to show support for him, to let him know that he's loved and he's cared about, and that we will pray for him, continue to pray for him.
What do you think he's doing in there?
Preaching the gospel.
Today.
Well, we really believe that Pastor Artur Pawlowski, we understand that when one of the bodies suffers, we all suffer. And we believe that God has allowed Pastor Artur to be in this situation to bring glory to him. And we wanted him to know that we stand in support and we're in total solidarity with him as a minister of the gospel, one minister of the gospel to another. We wanted him to know that we support him and love him and his family, and we support what God has used him for, because we're being used the same way.
And to encourage him to know that his efforts aren't in vain. Even though he's being somewhat silenced in the situation he finds himself in, the message that he stands for, the message that he's imprisoned for, is continuing.
I think it's important for all Canadians to stand together and show unity as one force. The government is coming against all of us, not just Pastor Artur, and I think that it's really important that we show them that we're not going down without fighting for what's ours, our rights and our freedoms.
What do you think Art's doing in there right now?
Most likely
Probably
praying,
leading souls to God and praying also.
for sure.
And here people are saying, well, like, what's your problem? Why do you keep on having your protests if you got everything back, right? You got like all the restrictions have been removed. No, because for the new employees, I'm sorry, I don't have a cleaner. For the new employees, CNRL the mandates the vaccines. So they say, well, like, we're welcome to come back. No, they just want to bring us back so they can humiliate us more. Right? And this is the situation. And as for Pastor Artur, we all know all these years he's been worrying in Canada about it. And he was being persecuted. Why? Just because he's been trying to expose this evil when we still had a chance.
You used to work here, so you know what it's like inside. What is it like in there for Art?
For Pastor Art, when they had Pastor Coutts in here, they did a complete lockdown. I think everybody knows that. So as far as Art being in here, it's probably going to be cleaner than Calgary was. I'm going to say it. I'm hoping anyways. As far as being treated well here, I can't see that there's going to be any kind of problem. So, I mean, as far as my relationships with, the guards that worked here, a lot of them are pretty nice guys. So, yeah, I got to say it. So, I think he's going to be okay here, and I'm hoping that he can convert a lot of people.
If you could send a message directly to Jason Kenney, Justin Trudeau, what would that look like? What would it sound like?
Well, I've been saying for a long time, as Moses did to the Pharaoh, he said, let my people go. And you know what? Yes, some of the mandates have been dropped. We can see how things are changing a little bit. But when we see one of our own still in prison, this has been so wrong, especially for feeding the homeless in Calgary and for having church. I'm telling you, this is supposed to be a free nation. And when one of our pastors is in prison because they preach the gospel, because they're on the street ministering to people who need it the most, this is a travesty. This is nothing other than tyranny. And we encourage you to take him, release him, and drop every charge that you've put unjustly against him. And you say that maybe that you didn't do it. it, but I'm telling you, you allowed it. It has been under your administration that this has happened. So I want to encourage you, listen, with all the respect in the world to the office of Prime Minister and the office of Premier, we would ask that you would sincerely look at what you're doing and make a decision to help this man get out of prison.
Well, over the course of a couple of hours, the size of the crowd has actually doubled in size. There are about 200 people here. They're gathered together in prayer, in worship, in song and fellowship. They're praying for the release of Art, but they're also doing something else. They're praying for his jailers, including the Alberta government, that they come to their senses and let Pastor Art go. And if you would like to follow along with all of our coverage of Pastor Art Pawlowski as he takes on the government for religious freedom, you can see all of our stories at saveartur.com. But at that website, you can make a donation to offset his ballooning legal fees. And good news, because through a partnership with the registered Canadian charity, the Democracy Fund, all the donations to saveartur.com qualify for a charitable tax receipt. For Rebel News, here at the Edmonton Remand Centre, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid.